Never forget, the war on drugs is a racket by the government and corporate thugs. The same ones who claim they actually care about the well-being of people, so we have to beware.
Hello everyone, my name is Jerry. I'm back with another video on reviewing Ron Renaud's book Uncompromised. Today I'll be going over chapter number 2 that is titled Story of Compromise. Now, I'm going to start from the back of the chapter and then work my way from the beginning until before the end. So the end says, the basic anatomy of compromise is the same. The foundation for all things is laid in small thoughts and little decisions. The moments where we either breach or establish our integrity, our true identity, and our native purpose. If we really want what we want, we have to get clear about the anatomy of compromise so we can choose the alternative, our birthright, our life uncompromised. And what Ron Renaud mentions in this chapter is how compromise happens in the mind and the heart. Now, the beginning of this chapter starts with talking about David's story from the Bible, the one who killed Goliath with a rock. And this is about how he compromised. Now, he became king of Israel, and 3,000 years ago, on an evening in spring, that's the time that they went to battle. But this time he decided not to, and he stayed home, and he didn't explain to anybody why. And he went out to the rooftop and started looking at naked women. Now, this is the story of his compromise and what we can learn from him. Now, he saw a woman, and her name was Bathsheba, and he liked her so much that he wanted to find out who she was, and she was the wife of one of the members of the group 30. The 30 were David's allies, like his people, the people that fought next to him in battle, and she was also the granddaughter of one of David's advisors. That was his advice was considered the word of God. And yeah, he basically requested for her to sleep with him, and at worst he raped her. Now, Ron Renaud says, look, he can have made his actions right, and this goes for all of us. If we ever have been in a scenario where we compromise and then we know, we're doing something wrong, there's still a time to turn around. But he did not. David did not. He requested for Uriah, which is Bathsheba's husband, who's fighting the war, to come back to report to David. This was so David could pretty much have him compromise by making him, or he offered him a dinner, a lot of food, and a place to sleep, and for him to have sex with his wife. But David, he has his own standards, which is if there's a war going on and one is at home, that person cannot have sex with their partner. But David was already compromised, so he wanted Uriah to compromise so he wouldn't feel bad. And Uriah said no, thank you, and he slept next to the door of the king's palace. And David again tried with inviting him to dinner. So now they were eating, and David got him drunk. Yet, even as Uriah was drunk, he was still more sober than David, because he was so compromised. And still, again, Uriah is someone we should remember because his story, he held his integrity, his purpose was unhindered, and yeah, his word, and he was loyal pretty much to David. And so then David sent him off to war, and to the whole army that was fighting, they were sent to retreat, but Uriah was sent to fight the enemy's most valiant men. So he died. That's what the story tells. And 7 days after mourning, David married Bathsheba, and it said that he harvested her. And then a prophet from God came up to David and said, "Hey, there's a story I want to tell you. That there was a rich man who had a ton of flocks and herds, which is equivalent to a real estate man nowadays who's successful. And there was also a poor person in the village who had one lamb, but he loved that lamb like his child. And the rich man had guests, and the rich man wanted to provide lamb, but he took the poor person's lamb and served it to them. And David was infuriated. He said, Who is this? That person deserves to die." And the prophet told him, "That's you. You are the rich man." And he was confident. He was speaking boldly. And David, anyway, I'm sorry. The prophet told him that God was mad at him. He's seen all that he's done, and that he was going to suffer from a series of calamities. The first one being that okay, I'm sorry, I'm backtracking a little bit, but Sheba got pregnant with David, and the prophet told David that the soon to be born baby was going to die, like right after that baby was born, and that came true. And then one of, what do you call it? Let me look. Let me go back for a second. Okay. All right. It says here, David's own daughter was raped by her half brother, David's son. Another of David's sons conspired for years and raised an army against his father, resulting in the death of many Israelites. The son was later killed. Israel was left divided, and David's house and life were left in shambles. Compromise costs more than you want to pay. Now, I have to give you guys one more gem from this chapter. Our stories probably aren't as treacherous or dramatic, but the basic anatomy of compromise is the same. The next chapter is Lessons in Compromise. All right. Thank you guys for listening. Peace.
We have to prepare, look at what happened this year. They locked the world down based on irrational fear. First the mask that you wear, then the jab in your arm. Next up is the police state, but don't be alarmed. That's sarcasm if you didn't catch on, cause you can't spell pharmaceutical without the harm.